This one, man. This one's heavy. But we got to talk about it. The life and legacy of Latasha Harlins.
Yeah.
You know, it's a story that still has so much to teach us about justice, about accountability, even all these years later. So, let's dive in. Who was Latasha Harlins?
Latasha was a 15-year-old black girl, full of life, full of dreams. She was born in East St. Louis, Illinois, but her family moved to Los Angeles, hoping for better opportunities. You know how it is.
Yeah, that search for a better life. But I'm guessing things weren't easy for them in L.A.
No, not at all. Latasha faced hardship early on, lost her mother to gun violence back in '85, and was being raised by her grandmother in South Central L.A. And South Central back then, man, poverty, neglect, the odds were stacked against you.
So even in the so-called City of Angels, there's this harsh reality for a lot of folks. And Latasha, despite all this, she had aspirations.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone who knew her said she was bright, ambitious, wanted to be a lawyer, fight for what's right. But her story, it takes a tragic turn on March 16th, 1991, at a place called Empire Liquor Market. And this is where things get really heady.
Okay, walk us through what happened that day.
Latasha goes into the store to buy some orange juice. Simple errand, right? But the store owner, a Korean woman named Soon-ja-do, she accuses her of shoplifting. Now, you got to remember, this is just 13 days after the Rodney King beating. Tensions in L.A. are already sky high. It's a powder keg, the city.
Man, talk about a city on edge. In this encounter, it escalates.
It does. There's an altercation, words are exchanged, and tragically, Do shoots Latasha in the back of the head as she's turning to leave.
Hold up, shot in the back of the head over orange juice. That's insane.
It's devastating. And what makes it even more gut-wrenching is that the security camera footage, it shows Latasha had money in her hand the whole time. Do's claim of shoplifting, completely false.
So it's not just a tragic shooting. It's fueled by this assumption, this prejudice. It's hard not to see the racial bias at play here, A young black girl assumed to be stealing, an assumption that costs her life.
You hit the nail on the head. That perception, that bias, it's at the heart of this whole tragedy.
So what happens next? Legally, I mean, what are the consequences for Soon-ja-do?
She's charged with voluntary manslaughter. Now, voluntary manslaughter means the killing wasn't premeditated, but done in the heat of the moment. But for many, even that charge felt too lenient, given the circumstances.
And what about the trial itself? What was the outcome?
A jury finds Do guilty. They even recommend the maximum sentence, 16 years. But here's where the story takes another turn. And it's a turn that sends shockwaves through the community.
All right, I'm bracing myself. What happens?
The judge, Judge Joyce Carlin, she hands down a sentence that's, well, it's way less than what the jury recommended, and what many people felt was just. 5 years probation, community service, and a $500 fine. No prison time.
No prison time.
Yeah.
For killing a 15-year-old girl. Man, I can only imagine the outrage.
The outrage was palpable. The black community saw this as a blatant miscarriage of justice. It reinforced that deep-seated belief that black lives are valued less in the eyes of the law. And this, on top of the Rodney King verdict, it set the stage for what was to come.
You're talking about the L.A. riots, right? That explosion of anger and frustration.
Exactly. The city was already a tinderbox, and these events, they were the match that ignited it all.
We'll definitely dig into the riots and their complexities in the next part of our deep dive. But before we do, can we talk more about Latasha, the person? Not just the victim, but the girl behind the headlines.
Absolutely. It's crucial we remember that Latasha was more than a symbol. She was a daughter, a granddaughter, a friend, a young woman with hopes and dreams just like anyone else.
And that's what I want to explore more, to understand her life beyond the tragedy.
The LA riots, man, it was like a pot boiling over. The acquittal of the officers who beat Rodney King, that was the final straw for a lot of folks. But the anger over Latasha's case, that feeling that justice hadn't been served, it just added fuel to that fire.
Right. It was like a whole city was holding its breath. And that verdict, it just let it all out. But it wasn't just about one incident, was it? It was about years, decades even, of simmering resentment, of feeling ignored, marginalized.
Man, you're telling me. Systemic racism, police brutality, economic disparities, all those things have been brewing for years. In Latasha's case, it became a symbol of that deep-rooted injustice.
So walk me through the riots themselves. What went down?
6 days of unrest, man. Widespread looting, arson, clashes between communities. It was a dark time for LA. You had black folks rightfully angry, feeling like their voices weren't being heard. And then you had You had Korean-owned businesses, often located in black neighborhoods, becoming targets of that anger. It was a complex situation, a lot of pain and frustration, boiling over.
Yeah, that tension between black and Korean communities during the riots, it's a whole other layer to this story. Can you unpack that a bit more?
The riots, they weren't just about black anger towards white authority. They exposed the economic anxieties within minority communities. Korean businesses, often seen as outsiders, they became the focal point of frustration, even though they weren't the root cause of the issues. It's a reminder of how interconnected these things are: race, economics, social justice.
Man, that's heavy stuff. So amidst all this chaos and destruction, where does Latasha's story fit in? How did it continue to resonate?
Her name became a rallying cry, man. Chants in the streets, her face on murals. People demanded justice, not just for her death, but for the systemic issues it represented. Her story was a reminder that this wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a bigger pattern.
So even in the midst of the riots, her story had this power, this resonance. It wasn't lost in all the noise.
Not at all. In fact, it transcended the streets. Her story, it started to appear in music, in art, in conversations about social justice. It was everywhere.
Can you give me an example? Like, how did Latasha's story find its way into the culture?
Take Tupac Shakur's song, Keep Ya Head Up. He released it in '93, dedicated it to Latasha. The song, it talks about violence against black women, urges them to stay strong. It's a powerful example of how art can be used to process trauma, to give voice to the voiceless.
Man, Tupac, he always had a way of speaking truth to power, connecting with the pain and the struggle. That song, it's a testament to Latasha's impact, even beyond her life.
It is. And beyond music, her case is still cited in discussions about racial injustice, police brutality, judicial reform. It became a case study, a way to understand these broader societal problems.
Her story is tragic as it is. It forced people to confront these issues, to have these difficult conversations. It was a catalyst for change, even if that change is still ongoing.
You got it. And that's where the 2021 documentary, A Love Song for Latasha, comes in. It shifts the focus away from the sensationalized aspects of the case, the riots, the trial, and it puts Latasha, the person, front and center.
I've heard about that documentary. Everyone says it's incredibly moving. What makes it so special?
It gives you a glimpse into Latasha's life, her personality outside of the tragedy. You see her love for basketball, her close bond with her family, her dreams for the future. It's a reminder that she was a real person, a human being with hopes and aspirations, just like anyone else.
It humanizes her, right?
Yeah.
It takes her from being a symbol, a headline, and brings her back to being a young woman whose life was tragically cut short.
Exactly. And in doing so, it forces us to reckon with the true cost of her loss, not just for her family and community, but for society as a whole.
Man, that's powerful. So we've talked about the riots, about Tupac, about this incredible documentary, all these threads connected to Latasha's story. But decades later, what's her lasting legacy? How has she shaped our understanding of these issues?
Latasha's legacy, man, it's complicated, no doubt. It's a reminder of all the things wrong with, our society. Racism, the economic disparities, the way the justice system can fail folks.
Yeah, no, it's heavy stuff for sure. But there's also a story of resilience in there too, right? A community demanding change, using art and storytelling to keep those conversations going.
Absolutely. Latasha's case, it was a catalyst for social change, especially in LA. It forced folks to look at police reform, at accountability in the courts, at how we invest in communities that need it most.
And while we've come a long way since then, there's still so much work to do. Her story's it's a reminder that we can't let up. We got to keep pushing for justice.
You said it, man. You see it in all the ways people are keeping her memory alive. Murals, street art, academic studies examine her case. Community organizations are out there every day tackling the very issues her death brought to light. And that documentary, A Love Song for Latasha, it doesn't just honor her, it challenges us, to keep fighting against those systemic injustices that are still present.
That's what I find so powerful about that film. The director, Sophia Nali-Allison, She said she wanted to show Latasha's humanity, her joy, her dreams. It's about taking back her story, reclaiming it from the tragedy.
It's about remembering her as a person, not just a symbol. Think of it this way. The news, it often focuses on the what of a case like this. But this film, it helps us understand the who, Latasha, as a real person, a daughter, a friend.
Right. And that's something we can all do. Learn about her story, share it, have those real conversations about race, about justice, about equality. That's how we make sure her legacy continues to make a difference.
Couldn't agree more. The biggest takeaway for me, it's that every life has value. Latasha's story, it shows us how urgent it is to dismantle the systems that devalue Black lives, to build a society where everyone can thrive.
Powerful stuff, man. There's this quote from the documentary that really stuck with me. One of Latasha's friends says she deserved to grow old. It's heartbreaking. It sums up the injustice of her death, but also this need to keep fighting for a world where every young person, they get a chance to live a full life.
A world where a trip to the store for a bottle of juice doesn't turn into a tragedy. That's what we got to strive for.
That's real talk, man. Thanks for diving into this with me. It's been heavy,
But
important.
anytime, brother. Anytime.